All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and tonight is our third lecture in our series on an introduction to world religions, and we are tackling Hinduism, the Hindu traditions of India. And so tonight's going to be a very interesting stream. And, we first tackled theories of religion, academic approaches, categorizations of the phenomenon of religion. And then we moved into indigenous and native traditions. We looked at animism and all this different stuff, totemic understandings and constructions of tribal identity. And tonight, now, we're diving into Hinduism. And so Hinduism, as we'll see, is often considered the oldest of the world religions. So we can witness then with the Vedic traditions, the Indo-European basis for Hinduism, a transition from sort of animistic understandings of spirituality where they sort of worship and personify animals and human emotions, natural phenomenon. And we see aspects of this in Hinduism, but they're going to take it a little further. And so maybe it starts out in the Vedas with Agni, the fire deity. Again, we'll get into all this stuff here in a bit. But we can see this sort of anthropomorphization of natural phenomenon. But within Hinduism, we see the transition into a literate tradition. And this is revolutionary, and it's gonna totally change then the development of Hinduism, and we're gonna see how Hinduism aided in the advancement and construction of a civilization and peoples, where some of the indigenous and native traditions, again controversial, but how you categorize development or progress, we might say that tribal traditions are less developed in regards to societal structures. So literacy is a huge point here. And so we can see with Hinduism, and there's tons and tons and tons of sacred books here. So even though we call the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the traditions of the book, which are true in regards to the centrality of textual traditions within those Abrahamic traditions, Hinduism and Buddhism dwarf the Abrahamic traditions in regards to the amount of sacred texts. So we see literacy, poems, epic tales and stories. These are central and greatly important to the development of Hinduism. So we're going to be diving into all this stuff. Now, let me show you, again, the cheat sheets that I always construct for our classes here. I got a tons of stuff. So we got some unique aspects here of Hinduism. Then we're going to get into the historical development, the Indus Valley civilization, the Indo-Europeans, who are the Aryans, what is the Vedic tradition that they constructed? I mean, because Hinduism, as we'll see here, is a large swath and variety of traditions. It's a bit of a misnomer to call Hinduism a crystallized belief system. That's what we consider an ism, right? Whether it be communism or pragmatism or Hinduism. Ism is a way in which it's a suffix in which we indicate a sort of united ideological system or conception of ideas. Well, Hinduism is a wide spectrum of things. Again, as I have here in the unique aspects of Hinduism, monotheistic, polytheistic, henotheistic. Which one is it? Yes. Meaning it's all of these. Hinduism, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than as we get into the Abrahamic religions or some of the religions later here to just identify the pure framework and formation of the paradigm. It's a little bit more difficult, but we can say a few generalistic things that, again, why we call Hinduism Hinduism. And so one is based on the development of, because Hinduism is obviously a term developed by the British when they occupied India, and to describe the absolute variety and plethora of religious practice, both local cults and folk traditions, as well as more systematic understandings like the Upanishads and its sort of philosophical approach to the relationship between Atman and Brahman, the soul, the self, and that of ultimate reality. So, again, we're going to dive into all these things. I want to go ahead and take care of my announcements before I start moving through our cheat sheet here. And so here we have some of the things. I'll just show you what I got. We got the Indus Valley civilization. I got a section on the Vedic religion, so we can dive into a little bit of what are the Vedas. Then we can break into the classical Hinduism. Hinduism, as we typically understand it, this is a later development, and this is a transition in the sort of religious structure. I got some stuff on the sacred text, then post-classical Hinduism, a few things here. Vedanta, talking about yoga, talking about Tantra, talking about then the main denominations of Hinduism. Let's make this a little bigger here. Main denominations of Hinduism and important deities, which we can go over. And then I have a glossary that I think, again, as I always do, is absolutely second to none. And so the glossary here, I think, is second to none in regards to the Sanskrit terms. So you can see it's almost 4 pages of just terms. So we're gonna be looking at all this stuff again. This is only a half. This is only a half. So let's get into the announcements now, guys. This is the first half of our introduction to Hinduism. Again, we've already done theories of religion, and we've already done indigenous and native traditions. And the second half to all those are over at the website for members. So if you guys are interested in becoming a website member for $5 a month, please use the link just posted here in the live chat, and you can have access to the second half of my video content, of which, again, this one, I have documentaries for religion up on my website. So a lot of great content over at the website. Guys, smash that like if you can. We'd really, really appreciate it. And so become a website member for $5 a month. You get access to, again, the rest of our videos. The next one I think I'm going to do is Jainism. It's not going to be as an in-depth because there's not as much to cover. Today's topic is Hinduism, and I have so much topic to get through. It's just unreal. Jainism is another tradition out of India, which really emphasizes nonviolence. I may dive into, I don't know if it deserves its whole day or not. I may add Sikhism to it and do that maybe separately. Maybe I'll do Buddhism next, and then I'll just do Sikhism and Jainism together. Although they're not really related, but they're both religions of India. So if you'd like to get access to all this stuff, become a website member. Also, if you'd like to join our meetings, which are twice a month for the premium members, please do so with the $25 a month membership. Now, I got some exciting news, and that is today was back at the My Fitness, back at the gym, recording for Logos Fitness. So the fitness memberships, fitness content is going to be coming back. I know some people have been requesting more fitness videos, more fitness talk, fitness memberships, while other people not so excited about that, but that's fine. But I am going to be diving back into that, and today was the first day of filming for Logos Fitness, and so excited to get back. That membership is going to be available hopefully in the next week. We'll have a Logos membership, which is really just going to be an encouragement group. Whether you're interested in bodybuilding, CrossFit, long distance running, whatever it is, we are creating. Logos Fitness is going to be a group for Orthodox Christians, traditional Christians, to basically get together and encourage each other. And so it's going to be an accountability group. And so we're going to make sure we hold each other's feet to the fire. We're going to be very encouraging. We'll give each other advice when we go through fasting periods. For some of the Orthodox, we can talk about diets and ways we're getting through it, ways to maintain high protein intake and all that type of stuff. Again, that's going to be for the fitness membership. Will be going by next week. And then also, if anybody would be interested in signing up for a one-on-one session, you can do so with this link right here. I got one spot open for this Thursday. So if you're free this Thursday, you'd like to sign up, I got one spot open that's left. And also, if you guys would like to sponsor a stream, you can do so with this link right here. We have a sponsored stream that's coming. Shout out to Pim, one of our good Orthodox brothers here, Pim Orsovs, who sponsored the Khazarian stream, has also asked a stream on family curses. And so I will be getting, once I get the second half of this stream up on the website, then I will start and begin my research for his topic. So our next sponsored stream is going to be on family curses, both biblical and more historical. And then And so really looking forward to that as well. We also have a sponsored stream coming up on bowling alone and the communal decline in America. That's also been a requested topic. Somebody purchased a stream on bowling alone and the communal collapse within America. And then somebody just recently purchased a third stream, which is going to be on Christ, the eternal Tao, and really bringing together, again, the relationship between Taoism and Logos theology, which is right here, right? Christ, the eternal Tao. Higher Monk Damascene writes about that. So those are 3 sponsored streams that you're going to be seeing in the near future. If you guys also have a topic that you would like for me to dive into, feel free to purchase and we can do that. So without further ado, guys, smash that like and let's get into today's topic. Okay, so we're getting into Hinduism. And as I said, Hinduism, it's a bit of a difficult topic to totally grasp because, as I said, it is all these different practices. Hinduism is a term that was developed by the British to then basically unify all the religious, magical, folk practices they witnessed on the Indian subcontinent. And so how are all these practices unified because they're all done by Indian people, or are they all unified based on the historical development they come from? And that's what we need to point to, is that actually Hinduism, how Hinduism, despite, again, we're going to find totally contradicting practices, belief systems, it's all Hinduism. Because Hinduism is this religious tradition that develops in the Indian subcontinent, most notably in the Indus Valley. This is Pakistan. This is the area between Pakistan and India, that there's an ancient civilization. This is a debate. Was it the Indo-Europeans? Was it a native Indian peoples that were eventually conquered by the Indo-Europeans? Hard to tell. We can get into that here in a bit when we start doing into the history. But scholars debate, how exactly it all got started. But what is known for a fact is that Sanskrit is an Indo-European language. And this was discovered in the 19th century. And so scholars in the 19th century, again, philology was a huge thing, that they started looking at the languages and realized, whoa, all this Sanskrit being the sort of religious language for both Buddhism and Hindu text, right? Now, again, you can also find Buddhist and Hindu texts, like for Hinduism, you can find them in Tamil, you can find them in Bengali, all these different types of languages, right? But the sacred texts, like the Vedas, like the Bhagavad-gita, like the Upanishads, they're all written in Sanskrit. And so once they found out that Sanskrit was an Indo-European language, this was a huge deal because it showed that the religious basis for what eventually evolves into, for example, gods like Shiva, gods like Vishnu, they have sort of rudimentary starts within the Rig Veda, the Vedic tradition, that the religious tradition that was developed by the Aryans, the Indo-European peoples. And it is this foundation that unifies then all these different belief systems that come out of India that we call Hinduism. So what unifies them? They all emerge from the historical foundation of the Rig Veda, the Vedic tradition, So this Hinduism is often described as the oldest world religion, which is, again, difficult. That right there, that statement itself is obviously going to bring scrutiny onto it. Why? Because, we just did. Indigenous and native traditions, aren't they older than Hinduism? Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they even based on secular religious studies scholarship that believes it's sort of, again, this evolutionary process in religious development. Yeah, I guess those would be early, but they don't consider that a world religion, because remember, when we looked at those categories, those Nitty and Smart 7 dimensions of religion categories, textual, obviously literacy is a huge part of that. And so the native traditions can't really spread, right? You're born into your tribal native indigenous tradition, and that's kind of what it is. And they're generally, not always, but generally illiterate and don't have as of a developed framework. Now, we saw, again, examples of the Aztecs and the Mayas and all that stuff that kind of fit outside that general description. But with Hinduism, what do we see? We see the development. We see poems. We see the use of language. We see a more crystalline structures. When eventually we see the Upanishads, for example, we start to see systematic philosophy. And in fact, there are 6 orthodox schools of Hinduism that we'll see. Again, they're totally different, but there's 6 general schools of Hinduism. Again, we'll get into all this stuff here in a bit. So, as I said, it's a whole variety of things. Despite contemporary Western interest in Hindu traditions, i.e. the New Age, the spiritual not religious, Eastern mysticism within the West, Hinduism is not a missionary tradition. As we will talk about Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, those 3 religions specifically we would call missionary religions. They're actually interested in converting people, most specifically Christianity and Islam, which are also the 2 largest religions in the world. Hinduism is not interested in converting people. Hinduism is an expression of what it means to be Indian. Indians, right? Indians are Hindus. I understand, again, since the 20th century forward, especially the 1960s counterculture, it has been very common for Westerners to go to India, to find a guru, to dress like a sadhu, like some type of street wanderer, sort of a Hindu, and make it sort of their belief system. But generally speaking, to be Hindu is to be Indian. Although, again, an irony here is Hinduism is based on the Vedic tradition, and the Vedic tradition are Indo-Europeans, and not necessarily the same ethnicity of the people who still practice Hinduism. Okay, so these are not missionary traditions, and therefore to be Hindu is often indicative of being Indian. Families have a bhakti or devotional tradition towards certain deities and are expected to be continued through generations. Bhakti, you'll see me highlight these certain words. These are our vocabulary words that we need to know what they mean. And so bhakti is a Sanskrit term for devotion and devotional practices. And this is one of the 3 ways of liberation. How do you break free from the cycle of death and rebirth, what is called samsara, this term right here, a Sanskrit term for the cycle of death and rebirth, right? Hindus believe in a reincarnating worldview, a paradigm, that we are basically, even there's a cosmic reincarnation, it's called the Kali Yuga. And so, that's what we're in. It's the Yuga cycle. So the Yugas, there's various cycles of hundreds of thousands, millions of years, and it just continually goes on. And so we go through different cycles, different Yugas, until the Yugas themselves restart. And so right now we're in the Kali Yuga, which is believed to be a time in which morality and virtues are going to be on a precipitous decline until God decides to basically destroy. The universe is destroyed and the universe is then recreated, right? It's an eternal cycle here. It never ends. So interesting that for the contemporary Hindus, they understand that we are now in the Kali Yuga. And the Kali Yuga is the Yuga cycle in which, again, there is a precipitous decline in virtues and morality. So every family has a bhakti tradition, a devotional tradition. Could be to Shiva, could be to Shakti, which is the sort of divine feminine energy. It could be to Vishnu. It could be to Krishna and Rama, which then are avatars of Vishnu. And we're going to get into all this. It has 330 million gods. Everybody says Hinduism has 330 million gods. That is true. And we have to understand that many of these gods manifest themselves in a multiplicity of forms, and these are called avatars. And I want to make a point here because if you look at some of these scholastic books, again, I got 4 textbooks here on Introduction to World Religion. I noticed a few of them want to keep using the word incarnation and want to tie Christian understandings of the logos in the second person to similar understandings of the Hindu avatar. And although there may be some overlap here, I think, again, just to maintain our academic categories, we have to also state that it's not the same thing. The incarnation and the hypostatic union of divinity and human nature, the hypostasis, this is not what is believed to be happening with the avatars. These avatars are more images. It's all illusion. There's only one ultimate reality. It's all an illusion. And so it's not about a sort of fusing of human nature and divine nature. Very different understanding. Avatars and Christ's incarnation, though many scholars want to tie these together as similar concepts, maybe they are similar concepts, but again, using our philosophical and theological categories, they are not the same thing. Not the same thing. But each family has a bhakti tradition. So your family may have been devotions to Shiva for, as long as the family can remember. And so you then, as a Hindu, as an Indian coming from that family, are expected to also to follow in that sort of bhakti tradition, okay? And so there's a significant number of Hindu communities found in the Southeast Asia, including Bali, Indonesia, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Oceania, Africa, and other regions. The soteriology is really interesting. So again, what's soteriology? Well, I hope you're paying attention in that first lecture. Again, theories of religion, we went over some of this vocabulary. Soteriology is just a fancy term in religious studies to describe how salvation is attained within any particular religious system. And so obviously, theosis, the understanding of the energy-essence distinction, Christ's incarnation, belief in him as the Son of God, this is all part of the soteriological process of Eastern Orthodoxy. Soteriology for Hinduism is Hindus want to spiritually break free from the cycle of samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth. They believe, like the transmigration of souls of Pythagoras and Plato, that the world is eternal, right? And so because of their cosmology, because their understanding of the Kali Yugas, because they believe that the universe itself doesn't end, if it was to end, it means it's only going to re-begin. Well, then reincarnation, it makes sense, right? There's no end point. So then what we're doing, creation itself, will never, ever end. It continues to reincarnate. And so everybody is eventually going to win. In Hinduism, everybody is eventually going to break away from the cycle of samsara and achieve moksha. Another important Sanskrit term here that we got to remember, moksha, is the liberation. It's a Sanskrit term for liberation. You're liberating yourself from the confines of the cycle of death and rebirth. That's what that is. And how one then breaks free from the cycle of death and rebirth, well, there's three general traditions of how you do that. And so how does a practitioner attain moksha is highly contested among various Hindu traditions, right? And this is where the term yoga means to yoke, okay? And we're going to see that there's karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. Yoga doesn't just mean a posture. It doesn't mean your downward dog. It doesn't mean your sun salutation every time. Yoga is a Sanskrit term for yoking. And so yogas are used to yoke the Atman, the individual soul, the self, the individual self, which is identical to the universal reality, Brahman, in different ways. And so yoking the soul, which is divine reality, a piece of it, to the ultimate divine reality, that is the point of spirituality. That is the point of being a Hindu. That is the point of all yogas, all different forms or practices of yoking one's soul to the ultimate reality. What we consider as the sort of hatha yoga and the sun salutation, downward dog, that's called hatha yoga. That's a different form of yoga. And we'll get into that when we dive into yoga here in a few. So does one break free from samsara and attain moksha? Well, some believe it's attained through karma yoga or karma marga. Marga is what it's called. And that is correct action. Karma yoga is about correct action, that if I live my life according to the right ethical dictates and I don't accrue more karma, more negative karma, well, then I can be released from the cycle of death and rebirth and attain moksha. And I do it through the lack of karma. And so another point to be made here is only men can attain moksha. So again, don't point your fingers at me, ladies. But if you're an Indian and you're in India and you're a Hindu and you're a woman, well, that's due to the karma that you had in your previous life, because only men can actually be released from the cycle of death and rebirth. And so only men in India, that they are the only ones that can actually have salvation in this lifetime. All the females You're going to have to get it maybe next lifetime, as long as you don't accrue more karma. Because if you accrue more karma, you may come back as an animal. You may come back as something else. And then you're going to have to work correctly to then move forward and eventually become a woman and then become a man in the next life. And then as a man, then you can finally attain moksha. And so liberation is limited to men. Just FYI. I didn't know if you guys know that, but that is the case. So some believe you can be liberated through karma, which is correct action. Others believe jhana. Jhana is a Sanskrit term for knowledge. And this is where I think probably resonates with a lot of the people here in this community, in this live stream, is that they believe that you can be released through spiritual knowledge. Now, this is going to be very akin to what we've described with Gnosticism, right? That somehow just knowledge, the pursuit of ideas, the pursuit of concepts, the pursuit of right understanding can set you free. Well, they have a tradition within Hinduism that through your correct understanding, through correct spiritual knowledge, you can then liberate yourself. You can do it through correct action, which doesn't mean that you pursue a bunch of spiritual knowledge. Or maybe it's not through correct action, it's through special spiritual knowledge, or it's through the last one here, which is bhakti, a lifelong devotion to a deity. Or you can have bhakti yoga, which is that you are just, you devote your devotional life, all of your life to a particular deity, and that deity then can help you be liberated and attain moksha. That is another way. So salvation for all is what Hinduism teaches. Everyone's going to be saved eventually. All the women everybody who's a woman right now, a woman, good luck in your next lifetime. Maybe if you act right, maybe you'll be a man in your next lifetime, and you'll be able to reach moksha. So, but it's for everybody. So Hinduism teaches that nobody is not going to eventually reach moksha. Nobody is ultimately not going to have their Atman, their personal soul or self, to be unified, to be yoked, yoga, with the ultimate reality, Brahma. And so for Hindus, Atman, soul, is identical to Brahman. That is a general tenet that I would say is true for all of Hindus, generally speaking. Although, again, you can't say anything that's 2-1 because there's so many different variations. And so, when you look at the different devotional paths, I would say, again, as Orthodox Christians, we can actually get down on all three of these: karma, correct ethical action. Obviously, for our soteriology, you have to have correct actions. Correct spiritual knowledge, I think, is probably certainly aids. You can't be a heretic. And then a devotional practice, a lifelong devotional practice. So I think we can pretty much, even whether you're a Hindu or not, you can understand the validity or the reasoning between their sort of pathways for liberation. Pop-Tart asks if I'll do a dedicated video in this series on Shintoism. Yes, that will be after Buddhism. We'll do Shintoism. So those are some general unique aspects to Hinduism. So again, we only have so much time, and I'm not giving you everything, but we'll get through as much as we can through here. And so I got to save some for the members. But I would like to go through some of the deities and stuff like that with you guys. So we'll try to get through there. And I got a few videos for you guys as well. And I know I don't have to say this for the majority of you guys, but I just want to reiterate, I want to see people, have some respect for other people's beliefs. So I really don't want anybody in the comment. I'm not saying anybody has, but I've just seen it before. But this is an academic understanding of world religious traditions. I understand the majority of people are Christian. I understand the majority of people are Orthodox. But trying to mock or make fun of people, I don't think that's really useful. And that's really not what this series is about. It's to academically understand these things. So if you were an apologist, you would be able to perform apologetics more accurately regarding these different traditions. So, okay, let's do a little bit of a historical analysis. We'll run through some quick history here, and then we will get into some of the denominations, some of the other aspects that I have here. Okay, as I said, in the Indus Valley Civilization, Now, let me pull some things up because I want you guys to see a or a sort of map here. Here, let me put this down. Bob. Okay, so I got this sped up. We're going to speed it up a lot, but this is going to be the general history of India. Okay, so let's speed this thing up. We'll do 1.5, or maybe I'll do 2 here. But what we're doing, there's no sound. We don't need to hear any sound. But what we're doing is watching the development of this, of what we would consider Hinduism. So this Indus Valley Civilization, see it says Indus Valley Civilization. This is considered one of the oldest civilizations. Now we have Göbekli Tepe over in Turkey now, so this is obviously changing some of our known history. But this civilization right here, there's a lot of question mark. Guys, smash that like if you can. Smash that like for everybody who's still here, because they don't know. Was it the Indo-Europeans? Most scholars believe that the Indo-Europeans, the Aryans, came in from Central Asia and sort of dominated the people who already built these civilizations in the Indus Valley, in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, these different civilizations. You'll see them pop up here. Let me go ahead and play this. So you can see the time frame. So now we're at 1900, and you see Harappa appear just to the north there of those other two. Harappa is an important civilization. See, if I put in here Indus Valley Civilization, you guys can dive into this, and you can see again some of the unique aspects of them, because they contributed to like a lot of important inventions. So anyways, moving back here, so we're watching the map here, Gandhara. Now this is basically, they believe, the Vedic, right? So you see how it's all green. It says Vedic Janapadas. Well, this is now all the Aryan tradition. So this is the Indo-Europeans. It's debated, are they the same as the people of the Indus Valley? Are they the same as the people who inhabited Harappa? Maybe, maybe not. But the general consensus is around 1500 BC. So we're at 1360 BC, so this is more recent, but around 1500, potentially 1750, somewhere in there between 1750 and 1500, they believe that's when the Aryans started to write the Vedas, started to write the Sanskrit religious tradition that is the basis for what Hinduism is. So this is obviously a couple hundred years after that point, and now you're seeing the development of quote-unquote Vedic religions, okay? And that's what we're going to describe here in just a moment, of what is the Vedas, what are the Vedas, and how does this relate to everything. So so what you're witnessing here is the development of civilization, the development of culture, development of ideas, development of further development of language and Sanskrit and concepts, religious concepts, the concept of the soul and Brahman. All this stuff is being worked out during this period, okay? And it's really not till the Gupta period, so this is now, this is again leading up to, there we go. You see again, now we're in more known history. Things are really moving along. When you get to after the turn, and we get into the common era, or after Christ's death, we're going to see the development of the Gupta. Here, let me skip forward here. So you have the Indo-Greek. So you can see the Indo-Greek kingdom. This is, again, we're talking 154 BC. Well, Plato's 400, bros. So 500-ish, late 400s, that's Heraclitus. Again, early 400s, late 300s, we're talking Plato and Aristotle. So this is the time of Alexander and all this different stuff, right? A little bit afterwards, actually. But but there was an immense trade routes actually between the Greeks and the Indians at that point. So you can also see how India is divided up in a bunch of different empires. You have the Shunga Empire, you have the Satavahana dynasty, and this has typically been the case for India. India has typically been ruled by local kingdoms. Now, when we see the Gupta period here, it's getting ready to emerge. As soon as we give it another 100 years. Here we go. Now we're at the Kushan Empire, and then this Gupta Empire. Now you're seeing it right here. See the Gupta Empire, 349. It's going to start to grow. The Gupta Empire is really important because this is the development of what we consider Hinduism, the architecture of Hindu temples, the aesthetics, many of the iconography, many poems. That Buddhism was actually growing in prominence within India. And we saw that there's all these different kingdoms, all these different dynasties, all these different empires. And so Buddhism was, again, Buddhism, Jainism branches really off of Hinduism. Buddhism was really growing in prominence in Hindu quote-unquote culture, meaning this whole theology based in the Vedic system wasn't as popular, and the Gupta Empire revivified the interest in Hinduism. It really is essential in forming what's called classical Hinduism. Hindu culture as we really have come to know it. Now, there's a lot of changes throughout history, right? But this Gupta Empire, the Gupta period, as it's often called, is very important. It's very important for understanding the general development. So I just wanted to really get you there. Of course, we'll see that it maintains all these different dynasties, all these different kingdoms. And this is true for a while in Indian history. And you see, even after the Gupta Empire, it's the same thing. All these different kingdoms, all these different dynasties, until the old famous Delhi Sultanate. And this is when Islam and Hinduism really start clashing. And then you get the Mughal Empire. And that's, there it is, the Mughal Empire. And that is a pure domination of India. And that's why then the Indians welcomed the French and the British to come in to fight off the Muslims. And this is also where Sikhism, as we'll get into later, the northern part of India is called the Punjab. And that's why Sikhs are called Punjabi. They speak Punjabi. They are a mixture between Hinduism and Islam. Okay? So anyways, okay, we'll drop that. Now let's get back to our Hinduism. So the Indus Valley Civilization, we just looked at a quick map, a quick trajectory there. It was a Bronze Age civilization in the northwestern regions of South Asia, as we saw, basically modern-day Pakistan, lasting from 3,300 BC to 1,300 BC, and in its mature form from 2600 to 1900. Together with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was one of the three early civilizations in the Near East and South Asia, and of the three, the most widespread in its mature integration phase, with an estimated population of over 5 million people back in the day. 5 million, guys, we're talking 1,500 years before Christ. A 5 million people civilization or city, that is massive for the ancient day. Its sites spanned an area of northeast Afghanistan and much of Pakistan to the western and northwestern India. The cities of the ancient Indus were noted for their urban planning, their baked brick houses, elaborate drainage systems, water supply systems, clusters of large non-residential buildings, and techniques of handicraft and metallurgy. Again, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa very likely grew to contain between 30,000 and 60,000 individuals. In the civilization may have contained between 1 and 5 million during its florescence. An early and influential work in the area has set a trend for the Hindu interpretations of archaeological evidence from the Harappan sites. And basically, one scholar identified a great male god and a mother goddess, deification and veneration of animals and plants, symbolic representation of the phallus, the linga. This is And this is a symbol that you're going to see. It's quite popular in Hinduism. And so let me show you what the linga looks like. I'm sure you can guess. This is actually called the yoni. So the linga is technically just the phallic part that is emerging from the center. And so that is, so one of the things that you'll see in Hindu iconography is a continual balancing of the male and the female. And so the balancing of the male and female, we see symbols like this linga, which is often associated with Shiva. And so this stuff was found in the Indus Valley civilization, ancient Vedic religion. This is before Shiva is known as quote unquote Shiva. And we would say he was kind of part of that great male god. And then the mother goddess, that's the whole Shakti tradition. And so the representation of the phallus and the vulva, that's called the yoni. That is this thing that looks like a circle with then a linga in it, a phallic object. That's called the yoni. He hypothesized the existence of the cult of the mother goddess worship based on the excavation of several female figurines. In contrast to Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilization, the Indus Valley lacked any monumental palaces, even though excavated cities indicate that the city possessed a requisite engineering knowledge. Okay. So we're going to turn the yoni off there, get back to our structure. So now let's hear a little bit about the Indo-European. So the Sanskrit language, as I said, was discovered in the 19th century to have many cognates with other Indo-European based languages. This is why when you watch Indiana Jones, why the Nazis are so interested in Tibet and India. Why? Because of the sacred, the ancient Sanskrit, Indo-European, Aryan origins of these areas and traditions. Scholars debate when the Indo-Europeans came to control and influence the Indus Valley, or whether they originated on the Indian subcontinent. So that theories vary. According to the Rig Veda, Aryans were living on the banks of the Sarasvati, which will turn into the goddess Saraswati, who we will learn about here in a few. Well before drying up by the theorized date of their entrance by 1750 BC. So that would place the Aryans in the area at the same time of the Harappan civilization. So according to the Rig Veda, which we're about to dive into the Vedic religion, the Rig Veda, which is the basis, there's multiple Vedas here, but the Rig Veda, the most important text, often the Vedas are considered the sacred text of Hinduism. Now I'm getting ready to introduce a whole bunch of texts, the Mahabharata, which the chapter within it's known as the bhagavad-gita, the Upanishads, the Puranas, all this different stuff. These are sacred texts, but the sacred text of Hinduism, the texts are the Vedas. That's what Hinduism is. It's the variety of religious traditions that emerge based from the ancient Indo-European Vedic tradition. So, according to the Rig Veda, it claims that the Aryans were living on the banks of the Sarasvati, which was a famous river, a divine female river by the Indo-Europeans. And remember, the Indo-Europeans were not agricultural. They tend to venerate horses. They were a bit more nomadic. They tend to emphasize sacrifice. So you see this within the Mithraic traditions. You see this within many of the Central Asian tribes, Turkish, Mongolian tribes. But the Indo-Europeans, generally speaking, that's why we'll see that the third class within the caste system is actually farmers, because they didn't really care much for agriculture. But the Aryans claim that they were on the banks of the Sarasvati. That river dried up well before the quote-unquote date that the Indo-Europeans came, which was 1750 BC, according to scholars. So despite the timeline, Indo-Europeans were responsible for the development of written Sanskrit and composed many poems, myths, and manuals on ritual and philosophy. And this is what develops of what we're known as Vedic religion, or the Vedas, or the Vedic tradition. And so the Vedas are believed to be revealed scripture. Okay, so other forms of scripture within Hinduism aren't necessarily considered revealed. Revealed, obviously, is what we consider the Bible. The Bible was revealed scripture. Yes, humans wrote it, but it was divinely inspired, and therefore it's a revelation. Hindus don't have revelatory texts really outside the Vedas. The Vedas are believed to be revealed scripture. Remember that. That's important. The Vedas then is believed to be written by the rishis. The rishis were believed to have seen the mantras and spiritual knowledge and began to transmit the Vedas through an oral tradition. So the rishis, again, I have that bolded. Why? Because the rishis, that's a term for seers, mystical seers. There's still rishis in India today. A rishi is a Sanskrit term for a seer, a mystic, which is not necessarily the same thing as a guru, which is not necessarily the same thing as a sadhu. That's a whole different thing. So I just want to point that out. So generally, the rishis, the ancient seers, the ancient mystics were believed to have seen the mantras, right? The sort of the syllables and the phrases of understanding and spiritual knowledge, and began to transmit the Vedas through an oral tradition. The Vedas are generally believed to have been composed around 15 BC, possibly 1750 BC. Some, again, theorize that if they were there before 1750 BC, that they could be older, okay? The Rig Veda contains 1,028 hymns. 1,028 hymns. That's a lot of hymns. Again, this is a big book. The tradition. So most Hindus would consider the Vedas the most sacred text, yet few would be able to describe the contents. Why? Because the Vedas, in the Vedic tradition and the Vedic religion, began to develop specialists for the interpretation of the Vedas. These were known as the Brahmins. The Brahmins. The Brahmins are priests, and they're still considered the highest caste in the caste system within India. It's the priestly class. And so the Brahmins, which is not the same thing as Brahma, ultimate reality, which is not the same thing as Brahman, which is the creator God. So Brahman, creator God. Brahma, ultimate reality. Brahmins, Vedic priests, which also become Hindu priests. Following me there? Okay. So the Brahmins were considered the highest caste in Hindu society and are a priest class that maintains the authoritative teaching of the Vedas. And so the Vedas are in Sanskrit. Well, as I said, if you're in Southeast India, you're in the Tamil culture. Well, you speak Tamil. Maybe you don't know Sanskrit. Maybe you can't read it. And so that's why you would have a priest. That's why you have a Brahmin who would be educated to be an authoritative teacher on the Vedas. And so within Tamil culture, then you may have all these epics and poems that you read so the normal people, the average Hindu, may have a whole plethora of spiritual books and texts and stories that they read. And that's what they would read more frequently than even diving into what they would claim as the most sacred text of their tradition, which again is the Vedas. By the medieval period, the Nyaya, or the logical school of philosophy, believed that the Vedas were composed by God. But the Mimamsa and Vedanta schools held that the Vedas are coeval and eternal with God. Okay, so that's where you'll see a division. And we'll get into the 6 schools, the 6 philosophies, the 6 orthodox theologies of Hinduism. And right there named 3 of them. And then sacrificial offerings to the gods are a central part of the Vedic tradition because that is a central part of the Aryan Indo-European religion. So Indo-European religions, generally speaking, are anthropomorphized understandings of the sort of cosmos and natural aspects, and they are then often about maintaining universal order by sacrifices to the cosmic deities, to the cosmic gods. We see the same thing, whether it be a different Indo-European groups, we see the same thing here within India. And so this leads into the caste system. So obviously this formed what would be eventually called the caste system, and so you typically have 4 castes. Now, obviously, I have 5 here because really there's 5. It's just the 5th one is not mentioned because of who they are described to be. So the first class, as I said, is the Brahmins, the priesthood class. The second class is the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are the rulers, the administrators, and the warrior class. This is the second class of the caste system. And then you have the Vaishyas, which are the artisans, the merchants, and the tradesmen and the farmers. And so you can see the fact that the Vaishyas were the third caste. Indo-Europeans did not care much for the artisans, the merchants, and the farmers. They, again, the fact that the warrior class was higher, we see, again, very indicative of the Indo-Europeans. And then the fourth caste was the Shudras, the laboring class. But there's a whole class that is in fact larger than many of these other classes combined, and that is the Dalits, the untouchables. There's a whole class of Indians that are described as untouchables. And there was a point in Indian history where, and then I would speculate it's still true in parts of India. I don't know. I've heard it's a little bit different now. I've never been to India. But the Brahmins could not, the reason why these people are called untouchables is that if you were a Brahmin, you were not allowed to touch them. They were literally considered so dirty that you were not allowed to touch them. And so technically that is the fifth class, but there's technically only four castes in the caste system. But the fifth one is actually the untouchables. They're just not mentioned. And so then we get into the gods. So the Vedic religion, this is before classical Hinduism, right? So when we start getting into Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, Vishnu, and then his avatars was Krishna and Ramna, because we have the Ramayana, which is another very important text. All that stuff's classical Hinduism. This comes first. And so the Vedic religion had a series of gods, many of which are no longer become that important later in Hinduism. And so the top three gods of the Vedic religion kind of get displaced later. And so the most important god of the Vedic religion, of the Rig Veda, is Indra. He is the king of the Devas. And a Deva is a godlike deity. You have Devis, which are females, and then you have Devas, which are male. So you have Devis, goddesses, Devas, gods. Indra is a king of the Devas and of Svarga, of heaven, in the Hindu mythology. In Vedic times, Indra was described in Rig Veda as superior to any other god. He is associated with the sky, lightning, weather, thunder, storms, rains, river flows, and war. Indra's myths and powers are similar to other Indo-European deities such as Jupiter, Perunus, Zeus, Thor, you get it, right? So Indra's like the sky dad, the sky dad, the king of all the gods. And then you had Agni, and Agni is the fire god. And so you see here already a movement from, again, the animism from the indigenous and native traditions to literate society, the development of large cities, the development of culture, the development of poems, the development of literacy. And we're seeing these sort of anthropomorphized gods being extrapolated to further and further sort of concepts, philosophies, theologies, and all this different stuff. So Agni is a Sanskrit word meaning fire and connotes the Vedic fire deity in Hinduism. He is also the guardian deity of the southeast direction and is typically found in southeast corners of Hindu temples. In Vedic literature, Agni is a major and often invoked god along with Indra and Soma. Agni is considered the mouth of the gods, which is really interesting when we think of, I was just playing on the whole symbolism of fire when we think of the river of fire and God's love in Orthodoxy, but anyways, I'll move on. Agni is considered the mouth of the gods and the goddess and the medium that conveys offerings to them in Homa, votive ritual. He is conceptualized in ancient Hindu text to exist at three levels: on earth as fire, and the atmosphere as lightning, and the sky as the sun. This triple presence accords him as the messenger between the deities and human beings in the Vedic scriptures. And so we'll see three, again, be a prominent number. So here we see the three modes of the fire god Agni as fire on earth, lightning in the sky, and sun in the sort of cosmos, if you will. And so we'll find actually many similarities, many aspects, because Hinduism is incredibly mystical, right? Personal experience, just the mystical approaches to its own devotion, its own aesthetic, that I think Orthodoxy, again, a very mystical form of religion. If you were a Protestant Christian, a lot of this stuff would be almost considered too much, right? Because your religion is very rational. It doesn't engage with material as much as we'll see later with some of this Hindu stuff. Soma is the next god, and obviously I have a lot to say about that, the whole Soma ritual, so let me get through that as quickly as I can. Soma is a ritual drink of importance among the early Vedic Indo-Aryans. The Rig Veda mentions it particularly in the brew Soma. The Soma Mandala, which is a chapter. The Gita, meaning the Bhagavad-gita, mentions the drink in chapter 9 and is equivalent to the Iranian Hayoma. The text described the preparation of soma by means of extracting the juice of a plant, the identity of which is now unknown and debated among scholars. Both in the ancient religions of historical Vedic religion and Zoroastrianism, the name of the drink and the plant are not exactly the same. And so I've done a whole thing talking about soma. There's a whole development, a whole theory by R. Gordon Wasson that believes that soma is the Amanita muscaria, the red and white mushroom, and all this different stuff. That this is part of an inebriating psychedelic mushroom cult. Using some of that research, I have a whole stream that I'd recommend everybody diving into called Soma Among the Armenians, or my own personal research tying again the Indo-European religion of Mithra. Also Mitra. So take out the H, Mitra. Mitra is in the Rig Veda. Mitra is friends with Soma. Mithra, which becomes Mithraism, which is a religious tradition that was practiced by all through what we consider Iran and Armenia, that whole Caucasus area, that they were participating in the Soma ritual of the Amanita muscaria mushroom, and I have a whole stream on that, diving into that. Although there are multiple theories as to the identity of Soma. We know it's an intoxicating, inebriating brew. Some believe it was beer. Some believe it was mushrooms. Some believe it was Pagam Harmala. Some believe it was all this different stuff. Who knows? It's going to be very difficult for anybody to tell. But generally speaking, the most popular theory is that it's the Amanita muscaria red and white mushroom. Okay, moving on. You have Dais, not as interesting. Saraswati, though, again, that river, is a Hindu goddess of knowledge, music, art, speech, wisdom, and learning. Is one of the few Hindu deities that remain as a significant goddess from the Vedic to the contemporary period. Saraswati is still one of the most popular goddesses within Hinduism. And we're going to get to some of these gods here. I'm going to skip some of this historical stuff. I just needed to give you guys a historical basis for a lot of this Vedic stuff, so you can understand what I'm referring to. But Saraswati, very interesting goddess. She's one of the very few that actually maintain a similar identity too. Like, for example, Shiva goes from Rudra to Shiva. You know, this Rudra, the next one, is really one of the earliest forms of Shiva, but it's not Shiva. Well, Saraswati was Saraswati back in the Vedic period. Very interesting stuff here. And so she's one of the few Hindu deities that remains significant from a goddess to the contemporary period. She still finds veneration within Jain and Buddhist traditions as well as Hinduism. Rudra, another Vedic god, is the earliest emanation of and will eventually become Shiva. In the Rig Veda, he is associated with wind, storms, medicine, and the hunt. And then Varuna, the Vedic deity associated initially with the sky, later with all the seas, as well as Rata, justice, and Satya, truth. He is found in the oldest layer of the Vedic. Okay, yada, yada. Okay, anyways, that's Vedic religion. That allowed a basis for what develops into what's called classical Hinduism. So roughly beginning around 500 BC, before Christ, this is when literature that was composed after the Vedas was understood to be of human creation and includes the famous Hindu epics and ancient stories. So that would be things like the Mahabharata, which it would be like the Ramayana. That would be the Bhagavad-gita. That would be, well, much later. I mean, we have to cross over into the AD period, but you'd get something like the Upanishads, the philosophical texts. So that is what classical Hinduism. It's roughly around 500 BC, and this is the movement, a cultural movement, where they move away from the Vedas being the primary text, which were, again, revealed scripture that is then presented and understood through the Brahmins, that all this new literature, new books, new epics, again, all this stuff that are going to become very important sacred Hindu texts, which we're getting ready to show you, that's when these things get developed. And so this is what we could call, again, classical Hinduism. And this leads into the Gupta period. As I showed you, 320 to 540 AD was one of the great cultural and scholarly advancements, often believed by scholars as the golden age of India. The golden age of India. And so many Hindu epics and literary sources, such as the Mahabharata, again, Mahabharata, very important text. You got to know what the Mahabharata is. You need to know what the Ramayana is. Were canonized during this period. This period revived Hindu culture, which was being overshadowed by Buddhism. Popularity of Hinduism grew dramatically, and some incorporated the Buddha, which was once again gaining prominence, as part of the avatar of Vishnu. And so Vishnu is one of the gods, arguably the most popular god in Hinduism, is called Vaishnavism. That's one of the denominations. Those are the people who follow Vishnu, and whether one of his incarnations or avatars, known as Krishna or Rama. So Rama, Krishna. If you're part of those devotional bhakti cults, that means you're also a Vaishnava. You worship Vishnu. And so, this is when the concept of zero, so during the Gupta period, the concept of zero was introduced, the decimal system was invented, and around 499 AD, Aryabhata established the value of pi, 3.14, and the length of the solar year. This period, the Gupta period, also gave rise to achievements in architecture, sculpture, painting that set standards of form and taste that determined the whole subsequent course of art, not only in India, but far beyond her borders. And after the collapse of the Gupta Empire in the 6th century, India was again ruled by numerous regional kingdoms. Okay, so then after this Gupta period, so let's give it another 1,000 years, right? 500 BC to 500 AD, roughly speaking, that now we have a sort of crystallized form of what we would call Hinduism. And so Hinduism, or Hindu sacred texts, then, what are they? Well, these are the main texts that you guys need. Obviously the Vedas, right? And so we have the Vedas right here. These are the Rig Veda. That all is coming from the Indo-Europeans, right? And then you have the Puranas. So this is a vast genre of Indian literature, which is a wide range of topics, particularly about legends of other traditional lore. The Puranas are known for the intricate layers of symbolism depicted within their stories, composed originally in Sanskrit and then in other Indian languages. Several of these texts are named after major Hindu gods like Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, Adi Shakti. The Puranic genre of literature is found in both Hinduism and Jainism. The Puranic literature is encyclopedic, and it includes diverse topics such as cosmogony, cosmology, genealogies of God, goddesses, kings, heroes, sages, demigods, folk tales, pilgrimages, temples, medicine, astronomy, grammar, mineralogy, humor, love stories, as well as theology and philosophy. However, content is highly inconsistent across the Puranas. So basically, the Puranas then is just a collection of legends, traditional lore. Then you have the Itihasa, and this contains the Mahabharata, the Puranas, and the Ramayana. Okay, so it refers to the collection of written descriptions of important events within Hinduism. So a collection of events important to Hinduism. The Itihasa, the Mahabharata is the first one. So let me see here. Bada bing, bada boom. The Mahabharata. There it is. So the Mahabharata is one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India, the other being the Ramayana. It narrates the struggle between two groups of cousins known as the Kurukshetra War and the fates of the Kaurava and the Pandava princes. And so that's going to be the basis then for the Bhagavad-gita, right? What is the Bhagavad-gita? What is the Bhagavad-gita? You've probably heard of it. Well, it's a chapter within the Mahabharata. So the Mahabharata is describing, again, this war between these royal families. The Puranas are all these traditional lores. And the Ramayana is describing the tales of the avatar of Vishnu. Vishnu, also known as Krishna, also known as Rama, has an avatar known as Rama. And it's the Ramayana then is a tale about Rama and his wife Sita and the sort of adventures that they go on. So the Mahabharata includes, again, the story of the Kurukshetra war and preserves the traditions of the lunar dynasty in the form of embedded tales. The Puranas narrate a universal history. The books discuss in depth the topics of cosmology. Okay. And then the Ramayana contains the story of Rama and is incidentally related to the legends of a solar dynasty. So we see the Mahabharata is related to a lunar dynasty. The Ramayana is related to a solar dynasty. A story is considered to be itihasa only when the author of the story has himself witnessed or is a part of the story. So the itihasa then is a category of text of Hindus believed to not be revealed from God, but to be written by people who were then a part of the events that they were describing. Within a chapter of the Mahabharata is the very famous Bhagavad-gita. The Bhagavad-gita, also known as the Gita, the Bhagavad-gita is a 700-verse Hindu scripture that is part of the epic Mahabharata. It's chapters 23 through 40 of book 6 in the Mahabharata, and dated to the second half of the first millennium, and is considered of the Hindu synthesis. It is considered to be one of the holy scriptures of Hinduism. The Gita, as it is commonly referred to, is set in a narrative framework of a dialogue between Pandavar prince Arjuna and the guide and charioteer Krishna. Krishna, again, another avatar of Vishnu. Vishnu, one of the Trimurti. Brahma, the creator. Vishnu, the preserver. Shiva, the destroyer. The Bhagavad Gita is describing an incarnation of Vishnu as Krishna being the charioteer to the leading prince Arjuna, who's about to ride out to battle. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is he's riding out to battle. He can see the enemies across, but the enemies aren't just enemies. They're families, they're family members, they're friends, they're people he knows, they're people he's related to. And so the point of the Bhagavad Gita, I'll finish what this says, and then I'll tell you. He, Krishna, Arjuna dialogues cover a broad range of spiritual topics touching upon ethical dilemmas and philosophical issues that go far beyond war. Okay, that Arjuna faces. The whole dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita is that Arjuna is getting ready to go to war, and he's getting ready to kill family members because they're coming at him. He knows what's about to happen, and he starts having second thoughts. And Krishna, again, avatar of Vishnu, Krishna is the Bhagavad Gita then is bringing up concepts of dharma, the understanding of samsara, the understanding of moksha. And so the Bhagavad Gita is trying to explain to the reader through the narrative conversation, the dialogue between Krishna, God Krishna, and the prince, the warrior prince Arjuna, that Arjuna, you shouldn't be worried about killing your family members. You shouldn't worry about killing your family or your friends because the bodies, the physical representation, it's all Maya. It's an illusion, right? This isn't who you really are. Who you really are is the Atman, the self, the soul, the cosmic entity, of which is the same thing as Brahman. So Brahma, ultimate reality. Atman is the unique soul self, and it's part of that reality. The body is an illusion, according to this theology, according to Hindu understanding. And so Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, look, understand the cosmic reality of what's happening. That what's important here is not whether or not you kill a friend or family member that you care about, but it's you upholding your dharma. And this is an important concept. This is an important term. It's dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, dharma, and it's a Sanskrit term for ethical duty, your purpose, how you contribute to society ethically, how it is that you uniquely contribute. What is it you are supposed to do? And so Arjuna, as a warrior prince, his dharma is to go to battle. And so Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna and convey to him, look, your dharma is to fight. Your dharma is to fight for what you believe in, what you believe to be right, of which he's standing for what he believes to be right, and he's getting ready to go to battle with people that he usually cares about. He formerly cared about, probably still cares about. That's why he's having the dilemma. And so the Bhagavad Gita is about realizing that the soul is equal to ultimate reality, that the physical bodies and physical world is an illusion, and that the most important thing we can do then as peoples is understand this reality and then follow our dharma, our purpose, our ethical duty to others and to the world. And so if you're a warrior, then your dharma, your purpose is to fight. It's to die in battle. It's to do the thing that you acquire honor doing. That's the dharma. And so that's what the Bhagavad-gita then is all about, is death and rebirth, Maya, Dharma, and making sure that you fulfill your purpose. So the other important sacred texts, obviously the Vedas are the most important. And we've just talked about the Mahabharata, the Puranas, and the Ramayana. Now, within the Vedas, each Veda has 4 sections. And so you have the Samhitas, the Aranyakas, the Brahmanas, and the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the only thing that's important here that I want to show you guys. It's the Upanishads. And so the Upanishads are often considered the philosophical texts of Hinduism. Because Hinduism actually it goes through, especially the medieval period, it has a serious philosophical tradition. So Hinduism develops, especially during the medieval period, has its own schools of philosophy. And we'll discuss a few of these. But the Upanishads, which I have over there, it's one of the sacred texts, but it's a subchapter of the Vedas. And it was written later. It was in Mindam. It was later. So they are late Vedic Sanskrit texts supplied the basis for later Hindu philosophy. They are the most recent part of the Vedas. The oldest scriptures of Hinduism focus on meditation, philosophy, consciousness, and ontological knowledge. Earlier part of the Vedas deal with mantras, benedictions, rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. So that's what the Upanishads are. Okay. And then I said there's 3 ways of liberation within Hinduism, generally accepted. So 3 ways of liberation. I've already mentioned this. Karma yoga or karma marga. Karma marga. Marga yoga. Yoga, again, is what's yoga mean? Sanskrit for yoke. It's yoking the soul to the fundamental reality. That's the purpose of yoga. Karma yoga, the way of action, the path of unselfish duty, acting without attachment to consequences. That's one way you can reach moksha and be liberated from samsara. Jnana yoga, the way of knowledge, the path of transformative wisdom. True knowledge is real insight into the nature of the universe. And then you have bhakti yoga, the way of devotion, the path of full devotion and giving offerings to the gods. Then you have the 4 stages of life. As I said, this is only for men. If you want to get out of the samsara, you want to get out of this cycle of death and rebirth, well, you got to be a man, okay? Because if you're a woman, that's due to your karma. This is Hinduism. This isn't my belief. That's due to your karma. Make sure you burn that karma off. Make sure you're either pursuing jhana or you're pursuing bhakti or you're pursuing getting rid of your karma. And that way you can reincarnate as a man in the next life, and then you can make your way out of here. So if you're a man, then you have what are called the 4 stages of life. And so the 4 stages of life for a Hindu man, and this is not true for everybody. So there are, most Hindus never make it past stage 2. Okay. That's just a general concept, but this is the framework. And so, 4 stages. The first stage of life for a man who's going to make it, he's going to be liberated. He's going to make it out of samsara. The first one is the period of life. You're a student. You devote the beginning of your life as a man to learning and crafting one's skill set. This is according to Hinduism. So maybe some people are rishis and gurus and geishas and sadhus and all that different stuff. But if you're just a regular person like you and me, the beginning of your life is dedicated to learning and crafting a skill set. The next part of your life is becoming a householder, repaying your debts to society by marrying a woman, finding a job that benefits from your skill set, from all those things you learned as a student, and then providing for your family and other students. So the second stage of life as a Hindu man is to get married, have children, and provide for those children, and allow those male children then to be students as which you were in your previous stage. Not previous life, just previous stage as you were younger. Once all your children are now householders, right? If you're a householding man and you have children, once your children are all no longer students and they are themselves householders, you can become the forest dweller. Once a man's children are grown and householders, he and his wife may retire to the forest or more rural areas to live more simply. You pursue a more simple life. And then if you really want to make it out, You perform your sannyatsan. You renunciate. This is when a man must renounce the entirety of the material world and become a wandering ascetic. This fourth stage includes the renunciation of his wife and children. So he then, as an ascetic, as a renunciate, as somebody in the fourth stage of this life of liberation, the man would literally give up all his possessions. He would own absolutely nothing besides the clothes on his back. Often he would just get down to, what we might describe as underwear or some, some briefs. That's all he owns. He now will be fed. It will be upon the people within the city, the people who are householders, the people who are students, and the people who are even forest dwellers, to feed the renunciate. So he enters into the fourth stage of his life where he renounces the entirety of the world, all familiar relationships, all material possessions. He owns absolutely nothing. He can only walk up to people with his hands, and that's how they feed him. And that is then how he receives his food. And his goal, his job, is to just grow spiritually and become enlightened and again, liberate himself, attain moksha. So that is the 4 stages of life for a male Hindu. And then there's the 6 schools of philosophy, and that's what I was talking about. These 6, quote-unquote, orthodox schools. I mean, they're generally called philosophies. They're not really philosophies. It's more like 6, what would you say? 6 theology, 6 kind of schools of theology. But anyways, what are they? The number one school of philosophy, as they call it, is the Samkhya, which is a strongly dualist theoretical exposition of consciousness and matter, agnostic with respect to God or the gods. And so Samkhya, again, a dualist understanding between, again, consciousness and matter, mind and body. These are different words for basically describing the same thing, a dualist understanding of the non-physical and the physical. Next school of thought, next school of philosophy is called yoga. And that is a monotheistic school which emerged from Sankhya and emphasizes practical use of meditation, contemplation, and liberation. Anyways, I'll fix that later. So yoga then it's not just the postures. That is hatha yoga. That's an aspect of yoga. You have to understand yoga as a term. Don't bring all your Western baggage here and think that, is this hot yoga, or is this sporty yoga, or is this fitness yoga? Is this spiritual? Stop it right there. Stop the mental chatter. Stop it. Yoga is a Sanskrit term for yoking. Yoke. Yoga then is the school that is trying to yoke one's soul to Brahma, the ultimate reality, of which it uses meditation, contemplation, and liberation, of which hatha yoga is one of the aspects of yoga that believes you can yoke your soul to Brahma through the physical postures, through the asanas. That is hatha yoga. Okay, the next school is the Nyaya, or the logical, the school of epistemology, which explores sources of knowledge. And so they tend to not play very well with some of the other schools of thought because it's much more logical, much more rational approach to Hinduism. The next one is the Vaisekya, the empiricist school of atomism. So it's the only material exists school. So this is the materialist school of Hinduism, the Vaisekya. And then you have the one that we mentioned earlier, the Mimamsa, an anti-ascetic and anti-mystical school of orthopraxy. This school deals with the correct interpretation of the verses in the Vedas. I should have put in the Vedas. So the Mimamsa school, again, a lot of people within these other schools not really liking it, don't really like it. And it's because it's anti-ascetic and it's anti-mystical. It's all about doing rituals and practices the correct way. That's why its emphasis is on orthopraxy, not mysticism, not asceticism. And then you have the largest school of Hinduism, which is called the Vedanta. the last segment of knowledge of the Vedas. Vedanta is also referred to as something else. Uttara Mimamsa Vedanta came to be the dominant current of Hinduism in the post-medieval period. So I have a whole section here then explaining what Vedanta is. But we're running out of time. And so I didn't even get to what some of the stuff I wanted to dive into in regards to some of these gods and deities. And I really want to dive into that stuff. So I guess I'll leave Steve here at Vedanta, and I'll save this for members. This will be part of the second half. I'll dive further into Vedanta and yoga, Tantra. I do want to speak real quickly on these main denominations of Hindu deities. I'll speak to that maybe just real quick. But then you have the important gods. So let me tell you a little bit about the most important gods. So you have what's called the Trimurti, which you heard me talk about: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Brahma, the creator; Vishnu, the preserver; Shiva, the destroyer. Then you have the Tridev, which is basically the Tridevi, which is the female version of the Trimurti. So the Trimurti is male, the Tridevi is female. You have Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. The most popular god in Hinduism. Who is it? Who would you say it is? Well, most people would probably say, well, it's Shiva, right? And you wouldn't be wrong. Okay, Shiva, yeah. Probably, I would say, at this point in the 21st century, it's probably number 2. The number 1 deity in Hinduism in regards to the popularity of cultic worship and bhakti, devotional practices, puja, offering, ritual offering, puja, is Vishnu. Vishnu is referred to as the preserver within the Trimurti, or Vaishnavism. Vishnu is the supreme being who creates, protects, and transforms the universe. He is the supreme being within Vaishnavism, one of the major traditions within contemporary Hinduism. There are many both benevolent and fearsome depictions of Vishnu. In benevolent aspects, he is depicted as an omnipresent or omniscient being sleeping on the coils of the serpent, Adi Shesha, who represents time, floating in the primeval ocean of milk called Kashir Saga. So let me pull this up real quick. Let me go boom, boom. We'll go boom, bing, bing bong. Vishnu. Let's look at some images of Vishnu, the most popular god in Hinduism. Vishnu. So what does it say? He's standing on the serpent, right? This represents time. So let me. Okay. So Vishnu. So he's standing on the coils of the serpent Adishesha, who represents time, floating in the primeval ocean of milk called Kashira Sagara, with his consort Lakshmi. Whenever the world is threatened with evil, chaos, or destructive forces, Vishnu descends in the form of an avatar, which again, people call an incarnation, but we do need to maintain our hypostatic categories. This is not the same thing being claimed by Christianity in regard to the second person of the Trinity. To restore the cosmic order and protect Dharma. The Dashavartara are the 10 primary avatars of Vishnu. Of these 10, Rama and Krishna are the most important. Yes, so he has 10 avatars. The 10th avatar by Vishnu has not yet come, from my understanding, as this is part of the prophecy that he's going to come. This is when the world's going to end. And so Krishna is the one that, if you always hear people, well, don't you know, like, Christ is like, he's like a solar god, dude. Like, Christianity is like a solar religion, bro. Don't you know anything about Krishna? I'm very familiar with Krishna. Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu over in Hinduism. Krishna in no way is the same thing as Christ. There may be certain aspects or similarities, but Krishna is a lover. Krishna is romantic. Krishna has there's a whole story about how he's like, he's getting ready to, I think it was that these girls were swimming in like a river, and he stole all their clothes. And the girls, instead of being angry, they're, oh, Krishna. And so Krishna forced them to come out nude of the waters. But he has a sort of jovial character, and he's often associated with like loving and romance. So he's a major deity in Hinduism. He is worshipped as the 8th avatar of Vishnu and also the supreme god in his own right. So there's then people, again, there's cult. That's why the bhakti devotional, there are people that if you came across a Hindu or an Indian, you'd say, my family, we offer puja and bhakti to Krishna. Oh, okay. So they would then claim that Krishna is the ultimate deity of the universe. He's the supreme being. He is the ultimate reality. They'd say, oh, your Atman, your soul, that's just a piece of Krishna. Krishna is ultimate reality. And that'd also be true for the people who worship Shiva. Those would be the Shaivism. The people who prefer the abstract concept of energy or Shakti, which is a feminine. That's why it's called Adi Shakti. It's like it's a female energy. It's the Kundalini force. It's the energy that goes. It's the serpent that goes up your spine. Right. This is tied to the concepts of Shakti. So depending on what devotional cult you're in, depends on like which god you're worshiping. And so he's worshipped as the 8th avatar. He is God in his own right. He is the god of protection, compassion, tenderness, and love. He is one of the most popular and widely revered among the Indian divinities. He is a central character in the Mahabharata, the Bhagavata Purana, the Brahma Vaivarta, the Purana, and the Bhagavad-gita, and is mentioned in many Hindu philosophical, theological, and mythological texts. They portray him in various perspectives as a god child, as a prankster, as a model lover, a divine hero, and the universal supreme being. His iconography reflects these legends and shows him in different stages of his life, such as an infant eating butter, a young boy playing the flute, a young boy with Radha, or surrounded by female devotees, or a friendly charioteer giving counsel to Arjuna. And so, So that is Krishna. Again, you can dive in more if you would like to learn more about Krishna. Feel free to do that. The other avatar of Vishnu that is so popular is Rama, which is the basis. Remember that epic that not the Mahabharata, but the other one, the major second epic in Hinduism called the Ramayana. The Ramayana is all about a historical description of the avatar Rama of Vishnu. So Rama is a major deity in Hinduism. He is the 7th and one of the most popular avatars of Vishnu. The Rama-centric traditions of Hinduism, he is considered the supreme being. Rama is especially important in Vaishnavism, again, because they're worshiping Vishnu. He is the central figure of the ancient Hindu epic Ramayana, a text historically popular in South Asian and Southeast Asian cultures. His consort is Sita. Though born in a royal family, their life is described in the Hindu text as one challenged by unexpected changes, such as an exile into impoverished and difficult circumstances, ethical questions, and moral dilemmas. The entire life story of Rama, Sita, and their companions allegorically discuss duties, rights, social responsibilities of an individual. It illustrates dharma and dharmic living through model characters. Okay, so those are just Vishnu. So Vaishnavism, and that's where it gets to these devotional cults, right? Here we go. The denominations of Hinduism. Vaishnavism are all the traditions that worship Vishnu and any avatar thereof. Oh, I don't even have the thing. There we go. So Vaishnavism, this right here, Vaishnavism, one of the main denominations of Hinduism, is the largest. It's 67% of Hindus. Vaishnavism, 67%, over 50% of all Hindus worship some variation of Vishnu. Okay? Then you have Shaivism. Shaivism is one of the major Hindu traditions that worship Shiva as the supreme being. Now, back in the day, Shiva was more popular than Vishnu, and especially in South Asia. You can look at places like the Bengal. You can look at Tamil, India. These cultures tended to privilege Shiva. And so he's one of the major this is one of the major Hindu traditions that worship Shiva as the supreme being. One of the largest Hindu denomination, incorporates many sub-traditions ranging from devotional dualistic theism such as Shaiva Siddhanta, and yoga-oriented monastic non-theism such as Kashmiri Shaivism. It considers both the Vedas and the Agama text as important sources of theology. And And then you have Shaktism. Shaktism, again, it worships Shakti. So wherein the metaphysical reality is considered metaphorically a woman, and Shakti, Mahadevi. Okay, let me show you something. Okay, let's bring Krishna back. Okay, now let's go Shiva, the destroyer. So here you have Shiva. You can see a little bit right here. So you see the linga right in front of him. See in front of him the linga, the phallic object, often associated with Shiva. Again, remember he's the destroyer. So you see the trident, again, iconic symbol of Shiva. And then you see the semen coming out of his forehead. This is symbolic of his fecundity as a sort of male god. This represents him as the ultimate yogi because of his celibacy, his voluntary celibacy. So that stream coming out of his forehead, that is semen. That is indicative of the traditions of Kundalini yoga, symbolizing that he is both a yogi and he is activated. He is enlightened. His chakra systems and his third eye is on point, and that's why his semen is coming right out of his forehead. That sort of sexual energy, that Kundalini force is coming out of his forehead. That's what's being betrayed there. Now, Mahadevi, this is the ultimate goddess. So it's the goddess force. It's an energy. It's not just a actually, Nikolai, you can call it the Ganges River. It's actually semen. So if you're you're only demonstrating your own ignorance, brother. Like it has to do with yogic practices of semen retention and the activation of the Kundalini energy. So the fact that you're trying to make like, bro, it's only your own ignorance. I'm sorry. So Mahadevi, then Shaktism is regarded as the supreme godhead. It includes many goddesses, all considers aspects of the same supreme goddess. Let me show you. The same supreme goddess. Shaktism has different sub-traditions ranging from those focused on most worshipping Durga, gracious Parvati, to the fierce Kali. And I also want to say, in regards to the Ganges River, even the Ganges River is still symbolic of life. It's the most sacred river in all of world religions, the Ganges River, and the Ganges River. Even if you think that's what's coming out of Shiva's forehead, it would still, like, that's still. If anybody, just go check me. Just go look up the symbols of Shiva iconography. It'll tell you exactly why it's coming out of his forehead. It has to do with him being the ideal yogi. That's what that has to be about. It has to do with Kundalini energy. It has to do with sublimation of the sexual drive. It has to do with semen retention, which, again, the Ganges Rivers is just the footprint of Shiva itself. So the Ganges Rivers is just indicative of his life force. Okay, so come on. Anywho, okay. Back to it. So Shaktism is another one, and then you have Smartism, and we don't need to really get into that. So Shiva, going back to here, let me close this. Shiva is the destroyer within the Trimurti, is one of the principal deities of Hinduism. He is the supreme being in Shaivism, one of the major traditions within Hinduism. Shiva has many aspects, benevolent as well as fearsome. In benevolent aspects, he is depicted as an omniscient yogi who lives an ascetic life on Mount Kailash, as well as a householder. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. This is him being depicted as the omniscient yogi. That is, again, why we see the sublimation of the sexual energy in semen. That is why we see him dressed in various ways. He's depicting the ideal yogi. And so he's also a householder. This is where we get into the god Ganesha, right? The other most prominent god, one that is we've probably all seen and not too familiar with, it is Ganesha. This deity right here, the elephant-headed god. And so the elephant-headed god, this is perfect. See how he's standing on a rat? I love that. So Ganesha he is the son of Shiva. And there's a whole story of how did Ganesha get an elephant head? Well, this is when Shiva, we see, again, going back, we see Shiva being depicted as a yogi. But he's also depicted as a householder. Shiva's also, if you look up Kali, which is a tantric deity. What is this crap? What the heck? Hurry up. Okay, there we go. So if you look up Kali, you'll see Kali, which is a tantric form of, again, that Shakti, that goddess female energy. This is a bloodthirsty goddess. This is part of the tantric tradition. This is a sort of radical form of female energy going outside its sort of confines. You see she has a necklace full of heads. You see, again, the sort of attack on the masculine. Standing on her husband. So you see, she's so bloodthirsty, she was killing people, that she almost killed her own husband. That's why she's standing on top of him like that. You see, that is Shiva as the yogi, and Kali as the embodiment of Kali Ma, as Mahadevi, the female goddess, the Shakti energy, totally on top of him. So anyways, okay, back to Shiva. A householder with his wife, Parvati. So if you look up, go back. If you look up Shiva and Parvati, you'll see him as a householder. This is him and his wife, his beautiful wife. Parvati, yes. Oh, and then their child, you see Ganesha. So how did Ganesha get that elephant head? Well, from my understanding, it was Parvati is getting ready to go take a shower. She's getting ready to take a bath, clean herself a bit, relax. She tells her son Ganesha to watch the door. Don't let anybody come in the home because I'm getting ready to take a bath. And so Ganesha, doing as a young boy does, watches the door. And unfortunately, his dad starts to come home, Shiva. And he knocks on the door and he's asking to come in, and Ganesha, not knowing who it is, listening to his mother, won't let anybody come in. And eventually, Shiva gets so mad that he cuts the head off Ganesha, his own child. Once he gets out of this rage, being so enraged by his son not letting into his own house to see his own wife, he realized that he just cut the head off his own son. And so, eagerly looking around how to save, the closest animal was an elephant. So he cut the head off an elephant and put it onto his son, and that is why Ganesha has an elephant head. So just FYI. In his fierce aspects, he is often depicted slaying demons. Shiva is also known as Adiyoga Shiva, regarded as the patron god of yoga, meditation, and the arts. The iconographical attributes of Shiva are the serpent around his neck, the adorning crescent moon, the holy river Ganges flowing from his matted hair, the third eye, the eye that turns everything infant into its ashes when opened, the Trishula or trident as his weapon, and the Damaru drum. He's usually worshipped in the aniconic form of lingam. Shiva has pre-Vedic roots, as we talked about earlier, and also you'll find the so the dancing Shiva is a very popular image. So you've probably seen this one before, the dancing Shiva. Aldous Huxley was in love with the dancing Shiva. He thought it was the ultimate religious symbol for Aldous Huxley, the dancing Shiva. And so here you see Shiva and holding his drum, the serpent, his hair, all this different stuff, the cosmic samsaric cycle around him. And so what this is ultimately representing, again, from the Shaivism, the Shivites, the people who worship Shiva, is that our soul is a piece of Brahman, of Shiva, right? Shiva is ultimate reality. If you're a Shivite, if you're part of Shaivism, right? So if you're part of Shaivism, Brahma is Shiva. Shiva is Brahma. So your soul, Atman, is a piece of Shiva. And so therefore, the dancing Shiva is indicative of the world itself. Everybody moving about, doing day-to-day life. We're us right now, moving about. This is the Shiva dance. This is the dance. This is the cosmic dance. Yes, the Nataraja. I forget how you pronounce it. Let me see. If we go here, it's, yes. not a Raha, not a Raja, whatever. I don't think so. Yeah, the symbolism's really cool here, but Aldous Huxley considered this one of the greatest religious symbols of, it's at CERN. And this is because, again, I would say CERN has it because Shiva's the destroyer. That's a whole nother conspiracy rabbit hole we don't need to go down. But interesting nonetheless. So wanted to throw that in there. And so then Ganesha, again, you have Lakshmi, you have Parvati, Saraswati. Again, these are sort of the three most prominent goddesses, with Saraswati being the oldest. Remember, Saraswati's that goddess that didn't change from the Vedic period into classical Hinduism. She, you could argue, is arguably one of the oldest Hindu deities, Saraswati. So good for her. You have Ganesha here. And so let's read about Ganesha real quick. So, let me get some images of Ganesha as we read about him real quick. Again, this is one of the most beloved gods. So not the most popular in regards to veneration. So like the venerative cults. Ganesha is not as popular. Like I said, almost 70% of Hindus worship a variation of Vishnu. Not many worship Ganesha, but Ganesha is arguably the most popular in regards to everybody loves Ganesha. Whether you're in Shaivism or you're a Vaishnavite, doesn't matter. Everybody loves Ganesha. And so Ganesha is one of the best known and most worshipped deities in the Hindu pantheon. His image is found throughout India. Hindu denominations worship him regardless of their affiliation. Devotion to Ganesha is widely diffused and extends to Jains and Buddhists, and also in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia, Bali, Singapore, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Bangladesh, and in countries with large ethnic Indian populations. Although Ganesha has many attributes, he is readily identified by his elephant head. He is widely revered, most specifically as the remover of obstacles and thought to bring good luck. He's the patron of arts and sciences and the deva of intellect and wisdom. As the god of beginnings, he is honored at the start of rites and ceremonies. Ganesha is also invoked as the patron of letters and learning during writing sessions. Several texts relate mythological anecdotes associated with his birth and exploits. While scholars differ about his origins, dating him between the 1st century and the 2nd century, or the 1st century BC and 2nd century AD, Ganesha was well established by the 4th and 5th centuries AD during the Gupta period and had inherited traits from the Vedic and pre-Vedic precursors. Hindu mythology identifies him as the son of Parvati and Shiva and the Shaivism tradition, but he is a pan-Hindu god found in its various traditions. And so that's Ganesha. So, I wanted to show you guys a couple things here before I hop off. Again, smash that like. I hope everybody is enjoying tonight's stream on an introduction to Hinduism. I have so much that I'd like to still cover. Maybe we'll just go over a few of the terms real quick that I think are important before I show you a quick video. So, there's a bunch here. Obviously, Atman is the soul of the individual self, held by a Paushandic and Vedantic thought to be identical with Brahman, the world soul. The Avatara, a descent of a deity into earthly form. That's an avatar. Bhakti. Remember Bhakti. So these are important terms. Bhakti, Atman. Bhakti is the loving devotion to a deity seen as a gracious being who enters in the world for the benefit of humans. Brahma, the creator god. Not to be confused with Brahman, the world soul. Yeah, so I was actually pronouncing that wrong. Pardon me. Brahman, Atman, Brahman. Brahma is the creator god. I think I started to pronounce that wrong halfway through. So Brahman is the world soul. Let's see. The next one was Dharma. You need to know what Dharma is. Dharma is the religious and social duty, including both religiousness and faith, basis of living that upholds cosmic and social order. Jhana, knowledge, karma, and you know that one. Action, as well as the consequences of action, both good and bad, is believed to determine the quality of birth in future lives. Jhana is knowledge. That's a good one to know. Kshatriya, caste, you should know what the Mahabharata is. You should know what the Linga is. A mantra, often an expression chanted repeatedly as a focus for concentration and devotion. It is often believed to produce spiritual effects. Mantra is important. Maya that's one you should know. Maya, magic or illusion in the Vedas, the magical powers of the gods used to create the world. In Vedanta philosophy, it means the illusion of the physical world that veils the mind. So know that. Moksha, you got to know what moksha means. Moksha is liberation from samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, one of the 3 classical aims of life. Puja is another one. Puja is a ritualistic offering, ritual household worship of the deity, commonly involving oil lamps, incense, prayers, and food offerings. Know what the Puranas, remember those old tales? You need to know what that word is. Samsara, you need to know what that is, the cycle of death and rebirth. Satchitananda, that's actually important one I didn't even get into. Satchitananda is true consciousness bliss, is the epithet and description for the subjective experience of the ultimate unchanging reality called Brahman. In certain branches of Hindu philosophy, especially Vedanta, it represents existence, consciousness, and bliss, or truth, consciousness, bliss. Shakti, you need to know what that means. We've talked about it. The primordial cosmic energy and represents the dynamic forces that are thought to move through the universe. This energy is thought as a creative, sustaining, as well as destructive, and is sometimes referred to as auspicious source energy. You should know what the Upanishads are. That's an important one. Philosophical texts in the form of reported conversations on the theory of Vedic ritual and nature of knowledge, composed around the 6th century BC. Yeah, you definitely need to know what the Vedas are. We hit that one pretty hard today. Know what yoga is. Remember, yoking, uniting. Yoga is the uniting the self with God, a practice and discipline that may involve philosophical system and mental concentration, as well as physical postures and exercises. That's hatha yoga. So that's going to conclude the first half of our lecture. Again, I've finished the rest of this for the second half of members over on the website. So make sure, guys, if you want to have access to the second half of this stream, make sure you go over and become a website member for $5 a month. I will share that link with you guys right here. So yeah, Pop-Tart. DPH is just giving out at least part of a uni-level course on world religions for free. I think this is even better. I've seen some of the university I think that looking at some of the university course, I think it's quite poor. Again, Nikolai, I already stated, brother, that the Ganges is just another. Look up the symbolism, bro. I know that it's the Ganges, but it's also semen. He's the ultimate yogi. This is a fact. So I get it. That's what it is. It's also semen. He's the ultimate yogi. It has to do with asceticism. It has to do with spiritual activation. It has to do with his kundalini. That's what's identifying, that his third eye is activated. Along with the Ganges. Yeah, which is tied to him. Yes. Okay. So I wanted to show you guys actually one of these. Let me pull it up real quick. Here's some of the largest Hindu temples. I thought this was kind of interesting.
The town of Mannaguri is the 10th largest Hindu temple in the world. Dakshineshwar Kali Temple.
Here's a few of their temples here. I'm going to mute it. So I just want to give you a bit of the aesthetic, the Hindu aesthetic.
Prambanan, the Trimurti temple complex dedicated to Shiva and the sixth largest temple in the world, is located in central Java, Indonesia. In addition, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. This Hindu temple from is located because this temple, the fifth largest Hindu temple in the world. Ramakrishna Temple, and a chief Hindu temple, a complex of Hindu temples, traditional Hindu. The
So you can see,
Srirangam temple is often listed
very
as
famous
the
temple right
most
here.
ancient Hindu temple in the world. The temple received the UNESCO Asia Pacific Award for the 2017 Cultural Heritage Conservation Program for the Merit Award category. The Sri Rangam temple is the second largest Hindu temple in the world. Number 1. Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat, located in Angkor, Cambodia, on one.
So what she's talking about is the number one, the largest Hindu temple in the world is Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat. This place is beautiful. I don't know if you guys have ever seen real large depictions of it. Let me go back and pull up some images. This is in Cambodia. And so most people don't realize that, again, Hinduism spread all across Southeast Asia. And you can still go to Angkor Wat. This is, in fact, Angkor Wat became more popularized with Graham Hancock's The Fingerprints of the Gods, because he claimed that there was astronomical evidence for Angkor Wat with his theory of the 12,000 years ago, redating of the pyramids and all that type of stuff. But you can see the Hindu aesthetic. And again, much of this aesthetic that you're looking at here at Angkor, this all got developed during that Gupta period. Remember that Gupta period that we mentioned? So here's something that again, so I showed you guys Kali, right? So remember Kali Ma? Kali Ma. So she's a tantric goddess, right? You see how she has her tongue out and she's like possessed to some degree with her energy, and she's like intoxicated with her sort of rage, right? She's intoxicated with her rage. She has her tongue out. Well, I found a video of a Hindu worship of Kali Ma. So check this out. You may, some people may find this squeamish, but within like various, like the Thai Pusam festival in Tamil, people like to pierce themselves. And so you can see it right here. This is in Tamil culture, and you'll see that this is part of their festival. You see how the guy pierced his tongue with a thing of Shiva. They'll get in these ecstatic state. Look how thick that bar is that these guys have pierced their face with. So you'll see how they're putting all the piercings through their body. This is part of Tamil. This is Southeast India. But here is a video of people at a Kali Ma worship. So you can see this person does, again, I don't mean to be derogatory or pejorative here, but just as a Christian, just as a bystander, certainly this person, we could say, is in an intoxicated state. I don't mean drugs. I mean maybe a spiritual ecstasy or spiritual possession here. This person, if you watch the earlier part for 10 minutes, this person's dancing very intently, and everybody's watching, and he has his tongue out. He looks kind of dazed here, and he just goes ahead and pierces his nose right then and there. So you see the depiction of Kali Ma behind. And now he's getting ready to pierce his tongue. Pop-Tart said this man is off the perks. Yes, Seraphim Goose makes a really good point. Hinduism just seems like the most cohesively surviving version of paganism. That is a really good point and something that is true. So during my undergraduate studies, there he goes piercing his tongue. So you see him dancing in front of Kali Ma with the tongue out and everything. So interesting stuff nonetheless. I'm not obviously advocating anybody to do anything, but interesting stuff. So, yeah, here's a body. See, this is the type of piercings that you'll see some of these ascetics during these rituals. So this is, again, Tamil culture. This is in, this is actually in Malaysia. But this is a Hindu ceremony, and you'll see how the guys will, they'll be piercing themselves. So you'll see how they're voluntarily piercing themselves, just sticking it right in his skin. Whoever Pop-Tart is, you're quite funny, bro. Yeah. When I went to a pagan ceremony here in Indianapolis, and one of the pagan priests, he said exactly what you're saying, and it sounds like Nikolai is also agreeing that they believe that Hinduism is like paganism in its traditional form in the present time. So they consider the pagans of the rituals that I went to study them, they also believed what you're saying, that Hinduism is paganism just crystallized. So anyways, we don't need to watch any of this, but I just wanted to share some of that stuff with you guys and let you see it, just because I think it's interesting. Now, I'm going to dive into more of these visuals and stuff like that for the members. So if anybody would like, again, if you like today's topic and you'd like to get into, like the Kumbh Mela, I didn't even get into the symbolism. I wanted to get into the swastika and Om, maybe some chanting. I didn't even get into holidays. So much stuff that I would like, again, the dot, the third eye dot, which is called a bindi. Bindi, that's the symbolism that you see there. So much stuff that I didn't get into. And one of the things I didn't even mention that I wanted to was darshan. Let me go back to my glossary there. There's a word called darshan that I wanted to share with you guys because I really love this concept. Okay, it says darshan. Let me put this. So it's a Sanskrit term for the idea, and this is a belief that's also found in Buddhism. So you'll find this within Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism. Darshan is a Sanskrit term that believes when you stare at these idols of the gods, these various ritualistic, again, just like that Kali figure that the guy that was piercing himself was dancing in front of. They believe that as you see the deity can also see you. And I love this concept. So let me, again, bring this even back to these windows of veneration within our orthodoxy. These are windows of veneration. And as a window, we're looking into eternity, but eternity is also looking back at us. But we know we don't worship this. It's a piece of wood. I get it. It's wood with paint on it. But this concept of darshan within the Sanskrit, I think, is so interesting because it claims that whether it be the eyes of the Buddha or whether it be some of these Hindu altars or idols or whatever you want to call them, they believe that once the image is constructed, that is a sort of representation of the deity. And through darshan, the deity can see you and you can also see the deity. And so there is a sort of personal element there that you guys can see each other at that same moment. I thought that's a really cool concept, darshan. I've mentioned that before, but most people have no idea what that means. And so now that brings a little bit of a better context. So anyways, guys, we got a lot more to dive into in part 2 over at the website tomorrow. So hope you guys, again, sign up and become members and join me over there. Now I'm going to dive into a few super chats. I think we have 2 super chats before hopping off here. So again, if you enjoyed today's stream, please smash that like, guys. I'd greatly appreciate you hitting that like button and sharing. If you know somebody who's interested in Hinduism or world religions or would like to learn more about religions, please share them my series. I would greatly appreciate that. First super chat comes from Boneman538 and throws in $100. It says, thanks for the B-dives, brother. Well, thank you so much. Shout out to Boneman538. God bless you. God bless your wife. Hope you guys are doing well down south. Hope you guys are staying cool. Well, it's now starting to cool off, so you're probably doing a lot better now. But thank you so much, brother, for the very, very generous super chat. And shout out to B-Dive for his great music and intro. Thank you so much, Boneman538. God bless you, brother. Please come to the next premium members, man. We've been missing you, bro. Come to the next premium members group. We've been missing you. Next super chat comes from Biff Chuckley. Biff Chuckley throws in $8. Shout out to Biff Chuckley. He says, are there any cool stories you know of Orthodox Christians confronting Hindu demons? I feel like there's a paucity of based saint stories in that part of the world. I'm only familiar with Father Sam from Rose and Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. He has a whole section on Hinduism and a story of a woman going to India. And so, so I don't know a whole lot of Orthodox. I don't know the state of the Orthodox Church in India. That'd be something that somebody could definitely fill me in on. I mean, I'm not sure what the state of the Orthodox Church is in India. I know that I think Roman, through I think the Roman Catholic Church is the majority of Hindu or Indian Christians, from my understanding, but I'm not sure. That's something I'd need to look into. In regards to Orthodox Christians confronting Hindu demons, I mean, obviously you guys know what I think as an Orthodox Christian, but the point of my series is I want to keep it professional. When I educate people on these religions, obviously I don't tell them that I think some of these possessions and some of these scenarios and people's experiences are demonic, but obviously I think some of it is certainly on the edge of the Goa Inquisition probably made sure that Catholicism is the biggest there. Yeah, I would agree. I'm pretty sure the majority of them are Catholic. I'm not sure how many Orthodox are in India. I wouldn't suspect there's that many. There's definitely more Muslims, that's for sure. But Biff Chuckley, thank you so much for the $8 super chat. I really don't know any cool stories of Orthodox Christians confronting Hindu demons. The only cool stories I know is probably the where is it? Right here. The apocryphal Acts of Thomas. The apocryphal Acts of Thomas. I read this book and I actually made a video on it back in the day. That was early into this channel. And it's about the life of St. Thomas. St. Thomas, the doubter, the West calls him, St. Thomas the doubter. But when he made his way to India, that apocryphal text describes his experiences. It does accurately describe his body's burial, but it's kind of cool. Check it out. It talks about him healing people from possession. It talks about him casting out demons. It talks about his relic saving the son of the king who had him killed, and then his bones were then taken to, eventually taken to Italy. I think that's where the bones of St. Thomas are. They're now in Italy, a church in Italy. But the Apocrypha Acts of Thomas are quite interesting. So if you have free time and you'd like to dive into something that's maybe historical, obviously apocryphal, interesting nonetheless, I recommend diving into the Acts of Thomas. It's some good stuff. So sorry, Biff Chuckley, but thank you so much, brother, for the $8 super chat. And last super chat comes from The Green Feather. Shout out to Nick from The Green Feathers. Throws in $20. Thank you so much, brother. He says, God bless. Enjoy your week, brother. I have met a tremendous amount of Hindus here, and I hope they find Christ. I haven't met that many Hindus. I've met Western people that were into Eastern mysticism. I wouldn't say that they're Hindu. The only Hindus I've ever met were Indian, that actually were performing bhakti and puja and all that stuff. I know Alexandra. She was in a Hindu cult that worshipped Shiva there in the Bay Area, and then she worshipped a female guru. Again, so I'm sure they believed that she was full of Shakti and that she was an embodiment of that Shakti, divine feminine energy, and all that stuff. So, yeah, well, God bless them. I hope the Hindus also find Christ, and that's where I think the tag argument, again, the transcendental argument for God, Nick has a huge Indian population here. Okay. Though that makes sense then why you meet so many Hindus. And, for being Hindu, for Nick, that's where it's very difficult to convert somebody from Hinduism, because they're not Hindu because they have gone through a series of argumentation and believe it to be the most coherent worldview and justifies all the transcendental categories that they believe. That's not why Indian is Hindu. They're Hindu because that is their identity. That is who they are. That is their culture. And so it's going to be really hard to convert an Indian out of Hinduism, because if they're not pursuing these larger apologetic arguments, why would they even find another religion appealing? If they're just living a comfortable life, of course they're going to be Hindu. They're going to stay Hindu because that's essential to their identity. To break from that and become a Christian would cause a lot of problems. And so it's going to be difficult. It's going to be the Hindus that would become Orthodox or Christians are those that are really pursuing truth and wanting to figure out what is real. And that's where I think, again, doing our Orthodox apologetics, the tag argument, sharing the faith with people, I think it's always going to move everything in the right direction. And maybe that's what we'll do tomorrow night. Again, tomorrow night I got a debate with Adam Green. Yeah, Adam Green. Got a debate with him tomorrow night on the truth of Christianity. Is Christianity true? So we'll be diving into, is Christianity true, tomorrow night over on the Crucible. So anyways, Nick, shout out to you and the family, brother. Hope you guys are doing well. God bless you all. Again, Nick from the Green Feathers says, God bless. Enjoy your week, brother. Or you as well. Enjoy your week. I have met a tremendous amount of Hindus here, and I hope they find Christ. Sorry. Long day. Biff Chuckley, again, shout out to you. Shout out to the Green Feather. Shout out to Biff Chuckley for the $8 super chat. Are there any cool stories on the Orthodox Christian confronting Hindu demons? Don't know many, but the apocryphal text of Thomas casting out a lot of different demons, kind of interesting. And then shout out to BoneMan538. God bless you, brother, and thank you for your generous super chat. Guys, that's going to do it. Make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you sign up for the second half of today's lecture, which will be up tomorrow or Thursday over on the website. Tomorrow I got that debate, so I got to prepare for that. Not sure how much time I'll have, but I'm going to try. God bless everybody. God bless Nikolai. God bless the Green Feathers. God bless A Change of Heart 77. God bless Sarah from Goose. God bless Bearable Pain. Edward, Retarded Conservative. God bless all of you guys. Pop Tart, God bless you all. Hope you have hope you all have a wonderful wonderful evening. Bless your families, and I will see you all next time. Which will be Well, you'll probably see the debate tomorrow night on the Crucible, but I won't be back on this channel until Friday. So Friday. I'll see you Friday night. So until then, as always, God bless.